Chapter 67, You Don't Know, 2. I wanted to trail Cho Biok and find out something, but the bastard didn't leave the martial Righteous Alliance. The Righteous Thought Pavilion, where Commander-in-Chief Sima Cheon resided, was in the inner courtyard of the martial Righteous Alliance. It wasn't a place one could easily infiltrate. With my current inner energy, I could attempt it once, but there was no reason to take such a risk. It was unlikely that his source of money was inside the martial Righteous Alliance, and even if it were, there was no chance it would be revealed at the exact moment I infiltrated. If it could be easily discovered, it would have come out during the Heaven's Net Association's investigation. His money source must be something very secret. I decided to dig into the Three Shadows instead. If Cho Biok was Sima Cheon's arm, the Three Shadows were like his fingers. Having worked for Cho Biok for a long time, they must know something. I infiltrated the Summer Moon Pavilion, 1, where they had been partying for 2 days straight. Summer Moon Pavilion was a medium-sized pleasure house with 25 rooms and 50 courtesans. Among the 25 rooms, the Three Shadows were enjoying themselves in the 4th room of the annex. They partied until dawn, slept in the guest rooms provided by the pleasure house, and came out again late in the evening to drink and enjoy themselves. They were truly living it up, eating, sleeping, and indulging in the pleasure house. I hid in the ceiling of their room to eavesdrop on their conversations. The musty smell, crawling insects, and uncomfortable posture were unbearable, and I couldn't relax for a moment as I had to conceal my presence. This kind of surveillance was truly something I had never experienced in my entire past life. When I was young, there were no obstacles. I only had to think about myself, so I just cut down all the villains. I didn't think about the consequences. After becoming the Alliance leader, even if I wanted to experience such hardship, there was no opportunity. I lived a life where everything was resolved with just one word. The fact that I was now enduring their vulgar talk was, of course, for Baekpyo's sake. It was to protect his life completely. Baekpyo would have protected me like this too. Sometimes from the ceiling, sometimes from behind a narrow wall. I was only on my 2nd day. He had protected me like this for a lifetime. So how could I think this was difficult? Anyway, hiding here and observing them, I was able to learn several facts. The hairy one was 1st shadow, the burly one was 2nd shadow, and the ugly one was 3rd shadow. 1st and 3rd shadow used swords, while 2nd shadow used a large axe befitting his size. Surprisingly, they talked about everything. They spoke of the times when they first got together, where they had raped and killed people, shamelessly recounting their evil deeds even with courtesans present. It must have been partly due to the alcohol, but they also had confidence that the courtesans wouldn't dare disclose such words carelessly. Gal Sariang had once told me something like that. Our Righteous Thought Pavilion is difficult due to external attention, but general intelligence organizations often plant spies in pleasure houses. Men want to boast in front of women when they're drunk. As long as that nature doesn't change, pleasure houses will always be the place where the most secrets are leaked. As I listened to their past misdeeds, I directly felt the truth of those words. Just after midnight, the moment I had been waiting for finally came. I'm bored here and can't enjoy it anymore. 2nd shadow, who had been lying with his head on a woman's lap, suddenly sat up. 1st shadow, who was fondling a woman across from him, glanced over and said, "Hearing that you're bored in a wench's embrace, it seems you're ready to die too. Being bored is still being bored. Let's go there." "Where?" "You know where." 1st shadow shook his head. "Forget it. If you're bored, just drink more and go to sleep. Don't be like that, let's go. It's been a while since we've seen the kids too. Didn't the boss say? To refrain from visiting as much as possible. If it weren't for us, they couldn't have even started the place. Refraining from visiting my ass. Let's go." At that moment, I tensed up. The boss they mentioned must surely mean Cho Biok. They were talking about some secret place related to Cho Biok. The two looked at the youngest who hadn't expressed his opinion until then. He didn't seem very keen on going, but when the burly one frowned, he finally nodded. The three left the pleasure house. The place they arrived at was a secluded estate not far from the marketplace. It was in a location that would be impossible to find unless you knew exactly where it was, accessible only by a small path too narrow even for a carriage to pass through. Despite the late hour, a response came from inside as soon as they knocked on the door. "Who is it?" "It's us." When there was no reply from inside, the burly one peered through the gap in the door and said, Are you going to open up before I dig out your earwax? Only then did the door open quickly, seemingly recognizing the burly man. What brings you here without any notice? Though he bowed slightly, the man didn't seem particularly welcoming. The burly man grinned and said, Have you ever been folded in half? Not like this, but like this. He then demonstrated with his hands how the spine would bend backwards. The man frowned slightly and led them in. Follow me. You little shit, you should have done that from the start. The three followed the man into the building. The inside was ordinary. It looked like the interior of any common estate. They walked down the corridor and stopped between two rooms. The man manipulated a lantern hanging on the opposite wall, and the wall opened. Usually, secret passages are behind bookshelves in studies or under beds, but this one was in a completely unexpected location. Through there, they entered a large hall. There were 5 drinking tables, all full of guests, with women serving drinks at each table. It was like a mix between a pleasure house and a tavern. While pleasure houses usually serve drinks in separate rooms, here they were drinking in an open space like a tavern. But like a pleasure house, women were serving them. There was one thing different from ordinary pleasure houses. The courtesans were very young girls. Girls who looked no older than 13 or 14 were serving drinks and attending to the guests. The 3 shadows conversed as they looked around the interior. Business is good. Our boss must be making a lot of money. As first shadow said, all 5 tables were full of customers. Why don't they add more tables? That's the secret to its popularity, isn't it? If it's too easy to come, people get bored quickly. Our boss sure knows how to use his head. That one's grown a lot. Isn't that the one from back then? Yep. We ended up killing her parents too when the older sister woke up, remember? She's grown a lot. These kids grow up so fast. Hey girl, don't grow up too much. You'll die if you do. The 3 chuckled simultaneously. This was the secret pleasure house operated by Cho Byok. All the children here were kidnapped from various places across the Central Plains. The customers were old men who wanted to embrace young girls to regain their youth. Cho Byok recruited only a small number of rich men and charged prices incomparably higher than ordinary pleasure houses. But this place was always full. When this place first opened, these 3 shadows had kidnapped the girls. To maintain secrecy, there were only 3 swordsmen guarding this place, including the man who had opened the front door earlier. I was hoping a seat would be empty. Second shadow licked his lips, and the other 2 expressed similar disappointment. Let's go. Let's just go back and fondle those wenches' breasts some more. We're out of money anyway, so we'll have to start working again from tomorrow. After seeing these fresh ones, looking at those will really put me off. You crazy bastard. Just then, the man who had opened the front door earlier came up on a small stage to the side, leading a young girl. She looked about 12 or 13, a very cute child. Now, you've waited long. This is a girl who's come for the first time today. Of course, she has never experienced a man. The old men licked their lips, swallowing their lust. The child trembled in fear. Those desire-filled gazes directed at her were already undressing her. Now, we'll start the bidding at 500 taels. This is how they auctioned off a child when she first arrived. The 5 old men started raising the price. Each time they raised their hand, the price went up by 100 taels. In an instant, it surpassed 1,000 taels, then 2,000 taels. In between, the man threw out words to tempt the old men. Look at this skin. It's cleaner than the snow on a winter field. The rising price stopped at 7,500 taels. It was an enormous amount for just one night. If no one bids by the count of 3, it's decided. Seeing that no one else was likely to bid, the old man grinned broadly. 1, 2. Just then, a quiet voice came from behind. 100 million taels. Everyone was startled and looked towards where the voice had come from. I was standing there, at the focus of everyone's gaze. How could that child be worth only 100 million taels? I coldly asked the old man who had been trying to buy the child. Would you sell your granddaughter for 7,500 taels? The old man's face turned red and blue. Seeing that the opponent was a martial artist, he didn't dare to curse but turned to look at the man on the stage. The man on the stage gave a signal with his eyes, and 2 sword-wielding men standing to the side rushed at me. I easily dodged the flying swords and struck one man's neck with the edge of my hand. Crack! His neck bone broke and he collapsed. I slammed the other man into the floor with a throw. Bang! With a heavy sound, the man's spine shattered. After subduing the two men in an instant, the man on the stage looked at the three shadows. The three shadows leapt and landed in front of me. Second shadow turned to look at the other two and said, "I felt strangely like coming today. What would have happened if we hadn't come?" Just then, first shadow cried out in surprise. "Watch out, you dash!" Before he could finish saying watch out, my kick struck the back of second shadow's head. I had rushed in the moment he turned his head. With a thud and a sound of something bursting inside his head, the massive body fell forward. I leapt once more and brought my knee down on his head. Crash! His skull was crushed to powder. His body twitched once or twice before going still. He never even had a chance to draw the large axe at his waist. Looking down at the corpse, I said quietly, "Why turn your back when the enemy is in front of you?" The technique I used to kill him was the immortal crane's secret art. First and third shadow were glaring at me with wide eyes. Even though it was a surprise attack, killing second shadow, who boasted iron-like external martial arts, in just 2 moves was a shock to them. First and third shadow nodded at each other after exchanging glances. As soon as their signal to attack together ended, both of them rushed at me simultaneously. I also countered them with the immortal crane's secret art. Dodging the incoming sword, I twisted my body and charged at the man. It was a completely unexpected movement, so my shoulder accurately struck first shadow's shoulder. With a thud, he slid back. He tried to counterattack, but instead of attacking, he let out a scream. Arg! His shoulder had been shattered by that single attack. As he tried to attack again with his dangling arm, I wrapped my hand around his neck. Crack! His neck bent at a right angle, killing him instantly. Even while attacking first shadow, my gaze was fixed on third shadow. "Spare me! I'll just leave." The terrified third shadow threw away his sword and ran towards the door without waiting for my response. I kicked the fallen man's sword on the floor. Swish! Thud! The flying sword pierced third shadow's back. He flailed his hands in the air for a moment before falling forward. The man who had been auctioning the child on the stage had disappeared. I had seen him escape when the fight with the three shadows first started, but I deliberately let him go. He needed to leave to bring the one person I absolutely had to kill today. While waiting for Cho Byok, I beat up the old men who were there. Thud! 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 Teeth were broken, arms and legs were fractured. The old men screamed that they were dying. "Please spare me." These old and ugly men didn't ask to be killed. Even in this situation, they wanted to live. "Fine, I'll spare you as you wish." Thud! 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 I beat them mercilessly. I crippled them but didn't kill them. What would be the point of killing these old men who were already near death? I will expose what they did here to the world. It will be revealed to their families, and they will spend the rest of their lives in prison cells with their bodies broken. They will have to eat only rice gruel with all their teeth broken, living a life that's not really living. I will make sure they die in shame and agony in the end. The young girls were gathered to one side, watching this scene with faces that were both delighted and terrified. I asked the children, "Do you miss your mothers?" At my words, tears welled up in all the children's eyes at once. "I'll send you home." Seeing the falling tears, I felt sorry for the children. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. What happened here will be an unforgettable scar for these children. Children who were brought here before they even knew what the world was. This place was their entire world. It was uncertain whether they could live normal lives. This was why I was showing all of this to the children. If they can't forget anyway, then don't forget this satisfying moment when these bastards are being punished. I believe this was the way to help heal the children's wounds. That's why I intend to show them everything. Creak. Just then, the door opened. It seems Cho Byok has arrived. So watch carefully. Everything that happens from now on, after that door opens. Chapter 68, You Don't Know, 3. Cho Byok's expression hardened as he saw the situation inside. It was far more serious than he had thought. Until he heard the report, he had assumed that one of the bodyguards accompanying the old men had caused trouble. Having heard that the three shadows were there, he expected them to have subdued the troublemaker. After all, the three shadows could easily handle most experts. But those three shadows were now sprawled out as corpses, and the old men were groaning, half crippled. In the middle of it all was a man he had never seen before. "Who might you be?" Cho Byok's voice trembled. Even he would find it difficult to handle a combined attack from the three shadows. In other words, this opponent was stronger than him. "I'm someone who happened to pass by and discovered this filthy place." I answered like this for later purposes. It would be most convenient if this place was dealt with as having been swept clean by an unnamed righteous swordsman who was just passing by. Cho Byok attempted the most low-grade but often effective method. "Do you know who's behind me?" At his threat, I smirked and said, "Does the person you say is behind you know about the existence of this filthy place?" For a moment, Cho Byok froze. If Sima Qian learned about this place, it would be disastrous. Moreover, he had pocketed all the profits from here. Sima Qian would probably try to tear him apart. I was smiling as I looked at him. "But you don't know how angry I am. You are someone who has no right whatsoever to violate these children. You are less than the dirt under these children's toenails." I was so furious that these pure souls had been trampled by such a bastard. I was angry that Baekpyo and his family had almost been put in danger because of this scum. If you can't protect and look after children, you should at least not harm them. What do you want? Money. The imagination of these bastards only goes this far. If they were to raid a place like this, it must be for money. When I didn't say anything, he seemed to take it as a positive sign. "I'll give you a share of this place." 2/10? 3/10? "I'll give you as much as you want. Look at those children." He looked towards the young girls. Just his gaze was enough to terrify the children. It was clear how he usually treated them. Children are abundant in the martial world. So are old men who want children. "We can make a fortune, I tell you." I still said nothing. He smiled cunningly and said, "On top of that, I'll give you the chance to taste them first when new children are acquired. It will make you young and vigorous again, sir. This bastard is the lowest of all the villains I've encountered." I grinned. "Did you ask what I want?" "Just name it." "What I want is a bit difficult to explain in words, so I'll show you directly." I strode towards him. Realizing that I wasn't going for a hug or handshake, Cho Byok cursed and drew his sword. "You son of a bitch. If you don't like the chance I'm giving you, just die." Swish! Cho Byok lunged forward, thrusting his sword. It was a fast and deadly attack, truly befitting the right-hand man of Sima Qian. I dodged the incoming sword using the footwork of the Immortal Crane's secret art. The Immortal Crane's secret art was markedly different from my existing martial arts. I clearly recognized this difference as I employed the technique. After allowing him the first few moves, Cho Byok became arrogant. "You're nothing special, you bastard." He unleashed the most powerful attacks he could muster. If we had been alone here, I might have used him as a practice opponent for a bit longer, but I was worried that he might unleash sword energy that could harm the children. Dodging his sword that was aiming for my vital points, I closed in on him. Thud! My fist connected with Cho Byok's face, spinning his head around. As I was about to throw another punch at the staggering man, Cho Byok suddenly scattered something he had been hiding in his hand. Whoosh! A handful of powder was thrown into my face. Cho Byok retreated a distance. Judging from his desperate attempt to hold his breath, it must have been a deadly poison. I inhaled, actually sucking in the powder. I couldn't risk it spreading to the children. Seeing this, Cho Byok smiled with satisfaction. "You fool. Do you know what kind of poison that is? It's a poison that blocks all your chi and blood, killing you painfully with just one breath. But why aren't you dying?" As the smile faded from his face, it was my turn to grin. "Seems like you bought some substandard goods." I finally felt the reality of becoming immune to all poisons. That poison just now hindered my fighting less than flour would have. At least flour would have obstructed my vision. I lunged towards him. This time, he threw several hidden weapons in succession. Shick, shick, shick. I deflected the flying daggers with my bare hands. 3 daggers embedded themselves in the wall. This technique of deflecting flying hidden weapons without injury using the back of my hand was also part of the immortal Crane's secret art. He thrust his sword at me again, but it wasn't as sharp as before. He had lost his confidence after seeing me deflect the daggers with the back of my hand. Easily avoiding his attack, I twisted his wrist. Crack! His wrist twisted completely, turning in the opposite direction. Ugh! He screamed, clutching his mangled wrist. I immediately jumped up and struck his side with my knee. Thud! His pelvis twisted, and his screams grew louder. A flicker of joy crossed the faces of the watching girls. For them to have such expressions at this cruel sight, it was clear how much they had suffered. Yes, this won't resolve everything, but watch carefully. Thud! Thud! The first punch caved in his nose, and the second shattered what remained of his teeth. Please, spare me. Cho Biok pleaded with slurred speech, but it was a plea that would never be granted. Crunch! I stomped on his shin, breaking it. Ugh! His scream was filled with excruciating pain. I was inflicting as much pain as possible. I wanted the children to remember this moment clearly. Thwack! My elbow smashed into his jaw. His broken jaw dangled loosely. He probably wanted to collapse, but he couldn't. My fists continued to rain down on him. Thud! 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 It was too fast for the children there to see clearly. But with each punch that landed, bones broke, and each time, Cho Biok had to feel the pain. With all the bones in his body shattered, he became limp like an invertebrate. The light was fading from his eyes. I stepped back once, then rushed at him. Whoosh! This was the final blow. Thud! With this well-placed strike, his face caved in. He slowly fell backwards. By the time he hit the floor, he was already a cold corpse. Share your profits with the demons of hell. Of course, the content of those profits would be divine punishment and suffering. Just then, something caught my eye. A necklace that had been hidden under his clothes was now visible. I tugged it off and held it up. It was an arrowhead-shaped necklace, with the tip of the arrowhead designed to be twisted open. When I twisted the arrowhead, there was a small rolled-up paper inside. Numbers and letters, a cipher that couldn't be understood at a glance. Not knowing what it was but sensing its importance, I pocketed it separately. The girls looked back and forth between me and the corpse. When they looked at me, there was gratitude in their eyes. When they looked at the corpse, there was satisfaction. I walked over to the drinking tables. On the 5 tables, there were piles of promissory notes that the old men had brought for the auction. I gathered them all and distributed them among the girls. The girls received the money with frightened faces. I'm not giving you this money to forgive them. I'm giving it to you because it's your money. Then one of the girls held the money back out to me and said, "This is dirty money." Those men were dirty. Money is just money. I don't want it. When I see this money, it will make me think more about this past I want to forget. The girl threw the money on the floor. I picked up the money again and pressed it firmly into the girl's hand. Looking into the child's eyes, I spoke in a gentle tone. No. Even if you don't take this money, you'll keep thinking about the past. Tears welled up in the child's eyes, full of resentment. Yes, how could anyone forget what happened here? Humans are beings who can't forget even the tiniest things if they're etched in their hearts, let alone something like this. So take it. If you really don't want to use it now, bury it somewhere. If you still don't want this money when you're grown up, you can throw it away then. Surely this money will help the children in their future lives. This money was a just and rightful compensation for the pain and wounds the children had suffered. The children gathered around me. In life, you'll meet both good people and bad people. You just happen to meet the bad ones first. From now on, good people will be waiting for you. I only hope that these children will overcome these wounds and live well. If there truly is a heaven, I pray it will watch over these children from now on. I felt sorry for the children. As a fellow adult, I was just so sorry. Half an hour later, I was watching from a distant tree as the people from there were being escorted by Martial Righteous Alliance martial artists. The girls would be sent back to their homes, and the old men would be imprisoned in the dungeon. It was too great a crime to escape using money and power. The Alliance rules, which I had established with the firm resolve never to forgive crimes against those who don't know martial arts, especially children, were very strict. Ma Bongi might have been corrupt, but the martial righteous alliance wasn't yet. This was the martial righteous alliance I had nurtured for decades. Ma Bongi had been the alliance leader for less than a year. Sima Qian would absolutely not investigate Cho Biok's death. Far from investigating, he would be trembling with fear of being implicated and seething with a sense of betrayal that Cho Biok had secretly operated such a place without his knowledge. With this, Baek Pyo and his family were safe. A few days later, on a dark night when even the moon was hiding, a man climbed over the wall of an estate. This was Cho Biok's secret pleasure house, and the man was the very one who had conducted the auction 2 days ago. The same man who had alerted Cho Biok about the intruder, and also the only survivor among the pleasure house's swordsmen that day. After the Martial Righteous Alliance's investigation was over, this place had been closed, but as the one who had managed this place, he skillfully went down to the basement through the secret passage. In the main hall, broken tables and dried blood on the floor reminded one of what had happened that day. He passed through the hall and went out the back door. He entered one of the rooms in the corridor. It was a place for storing all sorts of brooms, mops, and other miscellaneous items. The floor and walls were dirty, and there was a frown-inducing smell. The man pushed aside some boxes piled to one side. When he touched the wall, it opened. There was a door inside, with a mechanism made of an abacus attached to it. When the man entered some numbers, the door opened. The man who entered grinned. He. Now it's all mine. This was the secret storehouse of the pleasure house. It was where money and various valuable items were kept. The man's satisfied smile gradually stiffened. He slowly turned his head towards the back. His face turned pale. He couldn't help but be terrified. Because I was standing behind him. Did you know I would come? I nodded at the man's question and stepped inside. Cho Biok couldn't have settled the accounts every day. Cho Biok was busy doing this and that as Sima Chion's subordinate. So he couldn't have come every day to take the profits made here. Whether it was once a month or once every 2 months. He would have come on set days to collect the money. That's why I thought there would be a secret place here. Because they would have needed to store the money. Naturally, someone would have been able to open this place. He took the money once every 2 months. Of course he would have. Cho Biok wouldn't have completely trusted someone and left it all to them. Please spare me. I already spared you once, didn't I? What? If you hadn't been greedy and had left this place, you could have lived for another 50 years. Swish! Thud! My sword pierced his heart. The man fell dead on the spot. As a reward for opening this place, I've given you a painless death. Of course, I had anticipated that he would return here. That's why I had been waiting here. If not, I would have killed him that day. Did you think I would spare the man who conducted the auction? Inside, there were various items and promissory notes. I gathered the promissory notes first. The total amount of money there was 80,000 taels. In just 2 months, they had earned as much as 80,000 taels. He probably had more money stored somewhere else. The cipher in that necklace might be a clue leading to that place, or he might have hidden it somewhere else. For now, I packed all the money into the leather bag I had brought. Being an illegal establishment, the promissory notes were all small denominations that I could safely use. There were also a few miscellaneous items. There was a nice box of hidden weapons. They were throwing knives, very well made. Moreover, they had no unique markings of the maker or user. I took those too. Now that I had learned the Immortal Crane's secret art, I wouldn't need to use throwing knives much, but it was reassuring to carry a few as a precaution. The next useful items were medicines for internal and external injuries. True to his nature of taking excellent care of himself, the medicines were top quality. I took them all. I had enough medicine for myself from what I had obtained from Ma Zhongsu's safe last time, so I thought I could distribute these medicines to Guangdu and the other sword squad members. They were such expensive medicines that they couldn't afford to buy them with their own money. I had 200,000 taels before, so now I had 280,000 taels. This amount, approaching 300,000 taels, was by no means a small sum. Moreover, this was excluding the money managed by Gongsu Chan. It wasn't just money. I had become immune to all poisons and my inner energy had increased. I had learned a new martial art, and new people were appearing around me. I was getting stronger. Chapter 69, When the First Snow Falls Again, 1. The next day, the people I had been waiting for arrived. Young master! As if it was a reunion after decades, Guangdu charged towards me like a bull. I stepped aside slightly and walked towards Gongsu Chan, who was following behind. You must be tired from your journey. Have you been well, sir? When I attended to Gongsu Chan first, Guangdu made an incredulous expression. Who? You're taking care of the money first, I see. Oh, so you consider our chief Gong as money? No, that's not what I meant. Gongsu Chan smiled at the flustered Guangdu. It's all right. No, it's not. I'm a person who manages money. As someone who interprets the world through money, such words don't offend me at all. Why are you being like this when I said that's not what I meant? We had such a good atmosphere coming here together, didn't we? Indeed, the atmosphere brightens when Guangdu arrives. He brings a unique energy. Guangdu came to my side and whispered discreetly. I understand why you attended to Chief Gong first. You prefer to save the best for last, right? I'm sorry, but I'm someone who believes that if you save things, they turn to shit. Ignoring Guangdu's pouting, I entered the inn first. You must be tired from your long journey. Let's eat first, you must be hungry. Guangdu's eyes widened at the dishes unique to Hubei. I had ordered a feast. Wow! This is really delicious. Wuhan is truly Wuhan. It's incomparable to that backwater Tsufu. Eat as much as you want. If it's not enough, I'll order more. As expected. There's no one like our young master. After filling their stomachs heartily, we finally got down to serious talk. Are my parents well? They're doing fine. Do they miss me? They didn't say anything like that. How could that be? Young master, you're still young so you might not understand, but when parents get older, they sometimes want their children to leave the nest. How long can a child remain just cute? Young master, you should look into the mirror sometimes. Ha ha ha. Since I was attacked, I had to retaliate. There was still one surefire way to get to him. Is Du Soon doing well? Ah, just when I'm about to forget, you mercilessly dig it up again. How can one forget their first love? How many times do I have to tell you it's not my first love? Gongsu Chan, who was sitting next to us, smiled faintly. He probably had an expression that suggested he'd bet money on it being first love if there was a wager. By the way, young master, don't you miss Miss Song? Is she doing well? She's become even more beautiful. How do you know? I visited again recently to pay respects to the madam. I felt grateful to her again. It was even more appreciated because it was when I was away from home. I know. Her actions are not to impress me. She too is experiencing changes in her life. Parts that she used to be indifferent to now seem important to her. Taking care of my mother is probably one of those things. That's what change is like. When one thing changes properly, everything changes. After hearing all the news from Shandong, I brought up the reason I had called them here. Let's create a merchant group. As if he had expected it, Gongsu Chan nodded calmly. When you called me all the way here, I had a feeling you would say this. What do you think? As you know, creating a merchant group is not an easy task. First, it requires a huge amount of money. I know. That's why let's start with a small-scale merchant group, not a large one from the beginning. Instead, please keep expandability in mind. When you say expandability, this merchant group will spread to various parts of the Central Plains in the future. We're starting small, but I want this beginning to become the root of a great tree. What I mean is, let's not create it haphazardly, but with the expectation of growing it significantly in the future. This way, we can quickly expand the organization whenever we want. It's easy to say, but by no means an easy task. After pondering for a moment, Gongsu Chan nodded. I understand what you mean. There was an expectant light in Gongsu Chan's eyes. I thought that this might have been something he had been dreaming of for a long time. Also, please establish a communication post connecting Wuhan and Shandong. Understood. Leave it to me. How much money will you need? Even for a small-scale merchant group, we'll need at least 50,000 taels to start. For now, I'll try to save from the funds I'm managing. I handed him a promissory note. It was money I had already withdrawn from the account. Here's 100,000 taels. Please start properly with this money. Gongsu-chan was shocked. Guangdu, who was next to him, also widened his eyes. Let me just touch it once. Guangdu stroked the promissory note, trembling. Using money taken from villains to start a business, this would have been unthinkable for me in my previous life. I would have thought it went against chivalry. But now it doesn't matter. I won't repeat the same life. I regret the past life I lived bound by face and reputation. It doesn't matter if I'm not called a chivalrous hero. I'll pay more attention to reality than to my reputation. Although it flowed from evil, the starting point of this money was likely not an evil place. It was just the result of exploitation. I hope this money will flow back to good places through my hands. If that happens, I don't care how I'm called in the martial world. This money is enough. We should be able to create the merchant group you mentioned. If you need more money, just say so, and if you need more people, feel free to hire them. I'm entrusting this task entirely to you, Chief Gong. Leave it to me. I turned to Guangdu and said, You'll be in charge of Chief Gong's protection while the work is in progress. Yes, understood. Guangdu answered with a happy expression. He seemed pleased to be able to help with such a big task. Gongsu-chan stood up as if ready to start immediately. Rest today and start tomorrow. No, I can't rest easy when there's work postponed. Gongsu-chan looked at Guangdu and said, Is that all right with you? Of course. We'll be going then. The two left the inn. Watching them move energetically, I felt the fatigue that had built up in Wuhan dissipate. The next evening, I went to the Wind Tavern with Guangdu. On the way, I saw a group of people walking in the distance. The man standing in the middle of the group was Ma Chiol-gun. I knew a little about him because I had seen him during my time as the alliance leader. I remember thinking, did Ma Bongi have such a son? After exchanging a few words with him, he seemed intelligent and had a decent personality. But that's just a guess. That was the first and last time I saw him. How many times in life have we been deceived by first impressions? Anyway, I know he's currently serving as the interim sect leader of the Heavenly Blade sect, which became vacant when Ma Bongi became the alliance leader. I wonder what brings him here. Next to him was an old man with a calm demeanor, and behind them followed 7 men. They were clearly experts with extraordinary skills, and I knew who they were. They were the 7 dragon swords, the 7 experts who guard the Heavenly Blade sect leader. They used to guard Ma Bongi, but now they were guarding Ma Chiol-gun, the interim sect leader. What caught my attention was a man standing slightly apart from them. Cold eyes devoid of emotion. Looking at the man, I immediately thought of Chilo. It's them. He must have been trained by the same organization. They had assigned one to Ma Zhongsu, so they must have assigned them to other successors too. But I was surprised to see that they had even assigned someone to Ma Chiol-gun. Something was happening. Anyway, it wasn't something I could intervene in right now. Do whatever you want, fight amongst yourselves. I'll become stronger on my own. What's wrong? Guangdu asked cautiously. It seems my expression had been serious for a brief moment. It's nothing. Young master. If something's wrong, you should tell me first. How could I not understand his concern for me? All right, if any dangerous situation arises, I'll think of you first. I strode forward, leaving the flustered Guangdu behind. No, you don't have to do that, there are plenty of moderately dangerous situations too. I introduced Guangdu to Baekpyo like this. This is my subordinate, Guangdu is the person I trust the most. It was a moment of introducing the person I trust the most in this life to the person I trusted the most in my previous life. While their personalities were completely different, they had one thing in common. They both had an unexpectedly sentimental side. Guangdu, elated at being called the most trusted, said playfully, "Thank you for taking care of our inadequate young master all this time." I had only introduced Baekpyo to Guangdu as the tavern owner I had newly befriended here. It was just a light introduction on the first day. Unable to join in the joke, Baekpyo waved his hands. Inadequate? Thanks to young Master Byok, I've been having a lot of fun lately. My sales have increased a lot too. I sat down with Guangdu at my usual spot and ordered drinks and food. Wow! The taste of this liquor is really amazing. At Guangdu's exclamation, I smiled and said, "Don't you taste the wind in the liquor?" Guangdu made a surprised expression. "That's a bit. Did you borrow money from the owner?" Baekpyo, who was listening, burst into laughter. One thing I noticed about Baekpyo during this visit to Wuhan was that he laughed a lot. I don't think I ever saw him laugh during his time as the White Tiger Regiment commander. That night, after returning to the inn, I had another drink with Guangdu. We brought up drinks and snacks and sat by the window of the second-floor guest room, drinking. We spent a long time looking outside while drinking. People returning home after work, the sad singing of a staggering drunk, martial artists walking briskly somewhere with their swords, various people were moving along their own paths. Just watching this scene gave me a strange feeling. Guangdu broke the fairly long silence. I think I understand why you like the owner of the Wynn Tavern. Did it seem like I like him? I was secretly surprised. Today, I had just introduced the two of them and had a quick drink before returning. I thought I hadn't shown much emotion. Isn't that the case? Why do you think so? He didn't seem like an ordinary tavern owner. I can't express it exactly in words. Anyway, just being with him felt comfortable. He was very different from the tavern owners I've seen. I hadn't noticed it because I had known him for so long. But Guangdu, seeing him for the first time, felt the sense of stability that Baekpyo gave off. I told Guangdu about Baekpyo. That he was the former White Tiger Regiment commander of the Martial Righteous Alliance, and that he had recently faced some difficulties which I had secretly helped with. I didn't want to deceive Guangdu, and there was also a reason why I hadn't made up my mind about Baekpyo yet. Honestly, I wanted to take Baekpyo with me. I wanted to persuade and impress him somehow and take him in as my subordinate. But not knowing how difficult my future path would be, I was unsure if it was the right choice to drag him into it. Of course, regardless of my determination, making him my person was almost impossibly difficult. He wouldn't easily serve another person. The perceptive Guangdu seemed to have glimpsed my thoughts. You should tell him that you helped him, that you saved his family. Why? Why? He should thank you. Am I a debt collector? If you give, must you receive? If you don't say anything, he won't know. How can he know what he hasn't seen? How can he know someone's heart? I know you don't like to show off, but the world doesn't work that way. If you don't say anything, people really don't know. This must be something he had experienced directly in his life. It would be cooler if you tell him later instead of me saying it myself. Well, of course. There was a purpose in calling me here. Ha ha ha. I held out my cup, and Guangdu clinked his against it. Young master. What? Be honest and tell him everything. That you want to be together. I saw how you looked at him earlier. It was the first time I've seen you look at someone else with such a good feeling. More than when I look at you. I wouldn't know that. I can't judge objectively. This wasn't an easy thing for Guangdu to say. He must have known that if Baekpyo joined, his own position might become narrower. That he would have to share the attention and affection he should receive. Despite this, Guangdu was telling me this. For my sake. All right, I'll think about it. Like Guangdu's emptied heart of jealousy, his wine cup was also empty. Do it. Please. The cold night wind coming through the window was announcing that winter had arrived. After finishing our drinking session, I lay down but couldn't easily fall asleep. Guangdu on the opposite bed was also tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He seemed to have a lot on his mind too. Suddenly, it felt much harder to make these decisions than to fight dozens of powerful enemies. And so, a night full of thoughts was passing. Chapter 70, When the First Snow Falls Again, 2. Stop them. You must stop them no matter what. Baekpyo shouted until his throat was raw, but no sound came out. As if in a dreamlike vision, everything was proceeding slowly in silence. Enemies were rushing in from all directions, and the martial artists of the White Tiger Regiment were falling one by one. Baekpyo swung his sword like a madman. There were too many enemies. When he cut down one, two would rush in, and when he dealt with those two, four would come at him. Beyond the falling enemies, he could see his subordinates being slaughtered. He couldn't go help them. Enemies were rushing in from all directions. Where's the Alliance leader? Where is the Alliance leader? He screamed frantically, but the sound only echoed in his head without escaping. He searched for Cheon Ha-jin while cutting down enemies. Hundreds were entangled in battle, but it was eerily quiet. The scene was all the more horrific because of its surrealism. The sight of comrades' limbs being severed unfolded slowly before his eyes. How long had he been wandering like this? Finally, Baekpyo caught sight of Cheon Ha-jin. There was an altar in the distance, and Cheon Ha-jin was lying on it. Another scene caught Baekpyo's eye. A pitch-black shadow in human form was walking towards that place. No! Stop it! Protect the Alliance leader! He ran towards the place, shouting at the top of his lungs. Enemies blocked his way. He cut them down again and again. No! Please! You bastards! Move! I said move. But the enemies endlessly blocked his path. Meanwhile, the black shadow climbed onto the altar. Alliance leader! Please dodge! Please wake up! But Cheon Ha-jin remained asleep on the altar. The black shadow drew out a pitch-black shadow sword. No! Thud! The sword thrust by the black shadow pierced Cheon Ha-jin's chest. Blood splattered. The sight of blood droplets flying in all directions was shown slowly in slow motion. Alliance leader! Cheon Ha-jin slowly turned his head to look at him. The moment their eyes met, suddenly, everything that had been moving slowly sped up. Thud! 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 The swords that had been attacking him flew in from all directions, quickly piercing his entire body. Uff! At that moment, Baekpyo woke up from his dream with a scream. His wife, Jong-young-won, sat up beside him. Honey! Are you all right? I'm fine. She poured water from a kettle at the side and handed it to him. Drink this. Thank you. Jong-young watched worriedly as Baekpyo drank the water. Her husband had been having nightmares every day. When he said he would quit the White Tiger Regiment, she didn't object. Rather, she encouraged him to rest now and do as he wished. With the money he had diligently saved during his time as the White Tiger Regiment commander, they bought a tavern and the attached house. She thought they could live happily like this, but her husband was suffering from nightmares every night. It's all over now. Jong-young hugged Baekpyo from behind. She wanted to be his strength as calmly as possible, but she couldn't completely hide the moisture in her voice. You don't have to protect the Alliance leader anymore. She knew her husband felt guilty about the Alliance leader's death. While some emotions fade as time passes, others become clearer. For her husband, the Alliance leader's death was the latter. I'm sorry. Baekpyo sighed lightly. It's not your fault, so don't be sorry. Don't apologize to me, or to the Alliance leader. She only hoped that her husband would soon break free from the wounds of the past. Her hands, embracing her husband, tightened with strength. The next day, I didn't go to the Wind Tavern. I thought meeting Baekpyo when I hadn't made up my mind would only confuse me more. Gwangdu also didn't bring up any talk about the Wind Tavern or Baekpyo. Gwangdu went out with Gongsu-chan to help with creating the merchant group, and I wandered the marketplace alone. If it were Gal Saryang, I wouldn't hesitate. I've already made up my mind about him. I will definitely make Gal Saryang my person when the time comes. But why am I hesitating with Baekpyo? It's probably because of his family. The desire for him to live happily with his wife and children is making me hesitate. What would I have done in my previous life? I probably would have done whatever I felt like without much consideration. I wouldn't even have had such worries. Back then, I prioritized my feelings over others. It might be called selfish, but there were unavoidable aspects to it. When I was young, I lived with only one goal in mind. With the sole intention of becoming stronger and the best in the world, I didn't look back at anything else. Even if I wanted to look back, I couldn't. The process alone was dangerous and difficult enough. If I had looked back, it would have been a path I could never have reached. Becoming the Alliance leader, going to war with the 7 demonic heretics, fighting against the hidden powers within the righteous factions. I fought for so long that my life wasn't normal. I didn't know it then. I just thought that was what the life of an Alliance leader was supposed to be. But now it's different. Instead of just being true to my feelings, I'm now thinking about Baekpyo. Would he be happier living the rest of his life as a tavern owner? Or would he be happier roaming the martial world with me again? Am I letting my desire to be with him cloud my judgment, or am I failing to make the right decision because of these worries? It's still difficult to find an answer. Just as I realized many things only after dying in my previous life, the answer to this problem might only become clear after time passes. I stopped walking for a moment and looked at the setting sun beyond the distant mountains. Baekpyo, I'm not sure. On the opposite side, very far away, there was someone else looking at the setting sun in the distance. It was Ma Chiolgun. Standing alone in a wide field, his determined gaze and tightly closed lips showed his strong will. Even in his still posture, he displayed the qualities befitting the most likely successor of the Heavenly Blade sect. How long had he been standing there? A person walked towards him. Surprisingly, it was the Martial Righteous Alliance leader, Ma Bongi. You've come, father. Why did you ask to meet me here? In the Alliance, we have to be mindful of the eyes and ears around us, don't we? Then couldn't you have sent a mental message? I wanted to speak to you directly, father. I've already checked the surroundings. No one will be able to hear our conversation. The guard martial artists were standing far away, out of earshot of the two men's conversation. Father, please listen to what I'm about to say without misunderstanding. Go ahead. Why did you send our brothers to various parts of the Central Plains? Didn't I tell you when I sent you all down? Are you really conducting a successor test? That's right. Then why didn't you send me out? Someone needs to guard the Heavenly Blade sect, don't they? Then am I also being tested? Of course, aren't you? Ma Bongi was lying. He had already decided on a successor in his heart. Sending his children to various parts of the Central Plains this time was not to conduct a successor test, but to strengthen the power of the Heavenly Blade sect. He needed to build up the Heavenly Blade sect's strength, if only to keep in check the forces that had made him the Alliance leader. There was no point in strengthening the Martial Righteous Alliance's power. He didn't know who among the Alliance was in league with them. Of course, they would know his intentions. That he was building up strength under the pretext of a successor test. It doesn't matter if they know. What would they do if they knew? Would they try to stop it? How would they stop it? By killing him? If they had thought it would be this easy to kill him, they wouldn't have made him the Alliance leader in the first place. He was the one holding the powerful weapon called the Martial Righteous Alliance. They might have made him the Alliance leader, but that doesn't mean they can control him as they please. What exactly are you trying to say? Is there someone behind you, father? Ma Bongi's expression immediately hardened. What nonsense are you talking about? I asked who is behind you, father. You must tell me. No matter what anyone says, I'm on your side. Why do you think that? Seeing his son hesitate to answer, Ma Bongi exploded in anger. Do you think I couldn't have become the Alliance leader unless someone was behind me? No, it's because I can't understand why the three important units of the Martial Righteous Alliance supported you. You had no interactions with them at all, did you? Ma Bongi's sharp aura softened slightly. For other matters, interactions would have been important. But this is about choosing the Martial Righteous Alliance leader. It requires a greater cause than personal relationships. The gazes of the son asking for the truth and the father giving a false answer intertwined complexly in the air. Finally, Ma Chiolgun bowed his head and said, I spoke out of turn. I'm sorry. The two men's gazes intertwined in the air. I'll say it again, there is no one behind me. I'll believe your words, father. Then I'll take my leave. Ma Chiolgun turned around and walked away. Watching his son's retreating figure, Ma Bongi muttered quietly with a complicated expression. Damn it! Meanwhile, Teacher Go, who had been waiting at a distance, asked Ma Chiolgun. How did it go? Ma Chiolgun sighed and said. He kept hiding the fact that there's someone behind him until the end. Ma Chiolgun was certain there was someone behind his father. His sigh was passed on to Teacher Go. What will you do now? Ma Chiolgun bared his teeth like a beast. It was a strong and sharp appearance unlike his usual calm demeanor. I'll have to do something. I can't let all our efforts go to waste, can I? The next day, the spy sent by Zhong Yo arrived. I'm Jin, 2. I'm Su, 3. Jin looked to be in his 40s, while Su appeared to be in his 20s. They differed in age and appearance. But the two had one thing in common. They looked extremely ordinary. They had familiar faces that seemed like you might have seen them somewhere before, to the point where when you first saw them, you might wonder if you had met them once before. But these were people I had never met. I felt that if they were to talk with me now and then go mix with a group at another table, they would seem like they had been there all along. Will you follow me from now on? We've heard everything from sect leader Zhong. We will serve you as our lord and devote our loyalty from now on. Good. I'll trust you. The fact that Zhongyo had sent these men to me meant that they had the necessary skills and trustworthiness. Whether we would be compatible in terms of work or personality, we would find out as we spent time together. I gave each of them 1,000 taels. Use this for your operations and to ensure your safety. If you need money in the future, just ask anytime. The two men looked touched. It seemed they were grateful not just for the unexpectedly large sum, but also for the concern for their safety. Thank you. I gave them their first order. It was to gather information about the Martial Righteous Alliance. I told them to focus especially on information related to Sima Qian for the time being. I also told them to find out about the handling of the secret pleasure house related to Cho Biok. The target is the Martial Righteous Alliance, so you must never overdo it. I prefer small but safe information over big information obtained through excessive risk. Yes, understood. I sent the two men away. If they continue to show loyalty, they will become the core of the new information organization that will be created. Of course, the position of the leader will be left vacant for Gal Sariang. Do you have something on your mind? Guangdu snapped out of his thoughts at Gong Su Chan's question. The two were in the middle of eating at an inn, but Guangdu had stopped using his chopsticks and had been staring blankly for a while. It's nothing. Guangdu resumed eating and asked, "Where did you say you were going after we eat? I need to stop by Manchun Trading Company for a moment. Let's finish eating and get going then." While working on creating the merchant group, Gong Su Chan was really moving around diligently. He would visit the money exchange, then go to various trading companies in Wuhan, then to the ticket office, then to check out estates, then to information brokers. He was truly running all over the place. It was clear that creating a merchant group was no ordinary task. You're really amazing. How do you handle all these complicated and numerous tasks? Gong Su Chan smiled faintly at Guangdu's admiration. It's nothing special once you get used to it. I think you're the amazing one, martial artist Guang. Please don't call me martial artist Guang, just call me brother Guang. Guangdu still felt awkward being called a martial artist. If you say that, then why don't you call me a brother too? That's... He couldn't do it because he was afraid Gong Su Chan might feel burdened. Guangdu could understand why he was saying this. He was saying it was difficult and burdensome for him too. Gong Su Chan smiled and said, "Being amazing isn't about handling tasks you've been doing habitually since childhood. I think truly amazing things are about fearlessly accomplishing tasks you've never done before." Gong Su Chan was shocked when he belatedly learned that Guangdu had originally been a servant. Even after learning the truth, Guangdu looked so much like a martial artist that it was hard to believe. And quite a formidable-looking one at that. Guangdu shook his head slightly at his praise. I shouldn't be the one receiving praise. If it weren't for the young master, I'd still be sweeping courtyards. You're both amazing. This feels unexpectedly good, doesn't it? Sitting here and praising each other to our faces. Gong Su Chan burst into laughter at Guangdu's self-deprecating joke. For someone who usually only smiled, this laughter was close to roaring. At first, he had been curious about how a mere servant had become a martial artist. After all, such things were rare. But after experiencing Guangdu on the journey from Chufu to Wuhan, he could understand why. Why Biok Aridan cherished Guangdu. Guangdu had enough charm to warrant it. Chief Gong. Guangdu looked out the window and casually dropped a bombshell. I think I might cause some trouble soon. What should I do? At this sudden and unexpected remark, Gong Su Chan immediately replied without asking about its content. Go ahead and do it. Guangdu looked at Gong Su Chan with wide eyes. Really? You want to cause that trouble, don't you? When it's like that, you just do it. How can you cause trouble while worrying about the consequences? It was something that could never be said without absolute trust in the other person. Have you always been this reckless? No, I'm a very calculating person. Then why? It's not my business, is it? Good heavens. To the dumbfounded Guangdu, Gong Su Chan added with a smile. And trouble that's announced in advance isn't real trouble. So it's fine to go ahead. Guangdu stared at Gong Su Chan for a moment before standing up. Let's go, we have work to do. Yes. As he stood up to follow, Gong Su Chan could sense it. That Guangdu had just made some kind of decision. Chapter 71, When the First Snow Falls Again, 3. Jin and Su, whom I had sent as spies, returned after completing their mission. All the children from Cho Byok's pleasure house have been safely sent back to their hometowns. Also, all the old men who were there have been imprisoned in the dungeon. Not just them, but even those who had used the place before have all been arrested. They've all received sentences of several decades, so they won't come out alive. Moreover, it's a place where serious criminals are held, so it won't be easy to survive in the dungeon. It was a satisfactory result. Fortunately, as I had thought, the discipline of the Martial Righteous Alliance had not yet been compromised. But as time passes, the various organizations of the Martial Righteous Alliance will start to become corrupt. How can you expect the water below to be clear when the water above is murky? The upright individuals will soon start to be replaced by Ma Bongi's people. Commander-in-Chief Sima Cheon did not intervene in this incident. Rather, he's probably trying to erase any connection with Cho Byok. This was as I had expected. Can you secure evidence of the connection between Cho Byok and Sima Cheon? It might take some time, but I think it's possible. He has handled many tasks for Sima Cheon until now. Surely, somewhere there must be evidence that they were on the same side, evidence they hadn't managed to erase. If we could secure that evidence, it could be used effectively when dealing with Sima Cheon later. Of course, I won't use it right away. It would be evidence to be used at a critical moment later. Secure it carefully. Yes. At the same time, keep your ears to the ground for any movements in the Martial Righteous Alliance. Understood. You've done well. It was nothing. I was pleased with how the two handled their work. Above all, they were fast, and they accepted orders without complaint even when given difficult tasks. Although I'd need to observe them a bit longer, they could be considered to have passed the first test. After meeting Jin and Su, I went to find Gong Su-chan next. He was reviewing documents in his room. Is the merchant group progressing well? Yes, it's proceeding smoothly. If I were to give an interim report. No, that's not why I came. Please handle this matter entirely on your own, Chief Gong. I see. Then what brings you here? Have you perhaps seen martial artist Guang? I haven't seen him at all yesterday or today. I came to ask Gong Su-chan because the two had been going around together recently due to work. I haven't seen him. There was a slight hesitation in his answer. I see. It wasn't something I could press him about, so I was about to turn and leave when Gong Su-chan called out to me from behind. Young master. Yes, what is it? Finally, Gong Su-chan revealed the reason for his hesitation. If martial artist Guang causes trouble, what happens? Is it a big incident? When Baekpyo came out to open the tavern door, he noticed someone standing across the street. It was Guangdu. I felt like having a drink, so I came. Did you come alone? Yes. Please come in. Guangdu stepped inside. Having just opened, the place was still in a state of disarray. Let me help a bit. As Guangdu stepped forward to help, Baekpyo hurriedly stopped him. That would make me uncomfortable. Please just sit and wait for a moment. All right, I understand. Guangdu sat in the same spot where he had sat with Byok Aridan during their previous visit. Baekpyo quickly began tidying up the interior. With his skilled hands, he soon had everything in order. Guangdu quietly watched him. Although he was quite capable when it came to work, Baekpyo's skills were no ordinary matter. Shall I bring you the same drink you had last time? Yes, please. And the same side dishes too. They were delicious. Baekpyo brought the drink. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Our young master has spoken about you several times. About me? What did he say? That he met a really good person. Ha, I'm grateful that he thinks so highly of me. What do you think of our young master? Master Byok? Without a doubt, he's a much better person than I am. Guangdu quickly chimed in. Right? He's really a good person. Yes. Until he first arrived, Guangdu had intended to speak directly and tell everything. But when he actually saw Baekpyo, the words wouldn't come out. A big reason was that he was intimidated after learning that the other had been the commander of the White Tiger Regiment that guarded the Martial Righteous Alliance leader. He felt an inexplicable pressure. Until then, he had just been a tavern owner with a nice personality. Guangdu imagined the possible outcomes of speaking up. What if Baekpyo exploded in anger, saying something like, "How dare you? Who do you think you are to secretly help me behind my back? What if he beat him up then? No, that would be getting off easy. Are you perhaps enemies targeting me? I'll have to eliminate you and leave this place. What if he tried to kill them? Even though he had learned the 7 forms of the Southern Sea technique, there was no way he could beat a former White Tiger Regiment commander, right? Guangdu drank his alcohol in quick succession. They say there's no thief with a bad face, and you can't judge a person's heart by their appearance alone. Who knew what terrors might be hidden behind that innocent face? No. Someone who was the Martial Righteous Alliance's White Tiger Regiment commander wouldn't do that. I should just say it. It could even go like this. I've been waiting to find a new lord after leaving the Alliance. Thank you so much for telling me. Should I just say it? Should I just blurt it all out? Guangdu clutched his head. Just then, a voice came from right in front of him. Do you have something on your mind? Startled, he looked up to see Baek Pyo standing there with food. I'm sorry if I startled you. Ah, no. I was just lost in thought for a moment. Baek Pyo smiled and set the food down in front of him. As he was about to turn away, Guangdu spoke to him. If you have time, could you listen to what I have to say for a moment? Of course. Baek Pyo sat down across from Guangdu. He had been expecting that Guangdu had come to say something to him, given that he had come alone and seemed full of worries. Guangdu offered him a drink. Please, have a drink. I don't usually drink while working, but I'll have just one. The two drank. After taking a deep breath, Guangdu began to speak. What I want to say is related to our young master. Having made up his mind, he was going to tell him everything. Did something happen to Master Byok? Baek Pyo asked worriedly. Yes, something did happen. What happened? It's because of you, sir. Because of me? Baek Pyo was surprised. Guangdu told him exactly what he had heard from Byok Ridan. He told him about how Sima Chion's subordinate, Cho Byok, had planned to threaten Baek Pyo's family by taking them hostage with the help of the 3 shadows, and how Byok Ridan had found out about it by chance and eliminated them. This was the core of the matter as Guangdu saw it. To let Baek Pyo know that Byok Ridan had helped him. Baek Pyo was shocked by this unexpected information. However, befitting his former position as the White Tiger Regiment commander, he remained calm even after hearing everything. Why did he help me secretly? Baek Pyo was no longer just a tavern owner, but had reverted to the commander who had led the White Tiger Regiment. Our young master is that kind of person. He's not the type to boast about doing righteous deeds. Then why are you telling me about this past event? Because our young master likes you too much. Baek Pyo was surprised again. He likes me. Yes. He wishes to join forces with you. But it seems he can't express those feelings, so I'm saying this on his behalf. I know that telling you about how he secretly helped you earlier greatly diminishes our young master's good intentions. But since he will never mention it himself, if I don't tell you, you'll never know. I hope that by telling you this, you'll join forces with our young master. Having poured out his words, Guangdu squeezed his eyes shut. His heart was pounding as if it might burst. He was terribly anxious that Baek Pyo might explode in anger. If he finds out I told you this, I'll be beaten to death. Just then, a voice came from the entrance. So you do know that? Guangdu turned his head in shock. Young master! I was wondering where you'd gone off to, and here you are causing trouble. I strode into the tavern. I didn't need to ask what Guangdu had said, I could guess. I spoke to Baek Pyo. You don't need to mind what that fellow said. And I'm sorry for not telling you about the matter related to Sima Chion earlier. How did you come to know about that incident? I couldn't tell him that I was Chion Ha-jin and that I did it to protect him. As I told you before, I'm traveling the martial world to broaden my knowledge. During this, I learned that girls were being kidnapped across the martial world. Following this trail led me to Wuhan. Then I discovered that Cho Byok was running a pleasure house with kidnapped children. In the process of eliminating Cho Byok, I found out that he was targeting your family. After I had already eliminated Cho Byok and his group, I didn't think it necessary to tell you. Baek Pyo didn't say anything. It was a story that was neither easy to believe nor disbelieve. It seemed too clumsy to be a conspiracy, given that Guangdu had come and brought up the story in such an awkward manner. There's no need to take it too seriously. It's all over now. I'm very grateful that you think highly of me, but I have no intention of returning to martial affairs. I'm sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. Please don't worry about it at all. Guangdu asked weakly, his head bowed. I've ruined everything, haven't I? I smiled and said, No, you haven't. Guangdu sighed. The fact that you say I haven't means I have. Guangdu raised his head to look at me. His eyes were brimming with tears. I'm sorry, young master. But I think you shouldn't hide your feelings from someone you like. If we just let this pass, the owner here would never know your feelings, young master. I thought that shouldn't happen. I thought that at least the choice should be made not by you, young master, but by the owner here. I'm sorry, young master. I approached and patted Guangdu's shoulder. I understand. Your feelings. Actually, now that Guangdu had gone ahead and done this, I felt more at ease. Guangdu must have anticipated that I would never have said anything in the end. There's a kind of intuition that only close people can feel. Yes, he saw right through me. I probably would have just left. Because I wanted Baekpyo to be happy more than anyone else. Just then, Guangdu was startled. Oh. Baekpyo and I followed Guangdu's gaze out the window. Snow had started to fall outside. Forgetting the atmosphere from a moment ago, Guangdu said in an excited voice. It's snowing. It was the first snow of this winter. They say if you see the moment the first snow falls, you'll have good luck that year. Hearing my words, Baekpyo was startled. These were the words Baekpyo had said to me on the day I died. Let's go, Guangdu. Yes. Guangdu stood up from his seat. I bowed politely to Baekpyo and said, This seems like it will be the last time. If fate allows, we'll meet again. Baekpyo still looked dazed. He would feel somewhat sorry to just let me go, but he wasn't mentally prepared to join me yet. That last remark was my final gift to Baekpyo. It was my wish for him to see the first snow every year and always have good luck. Just as I was about to turn and leave, it happened. Woong! A vibration sound came from somewhere. Baekpyo, as well as Guangdu and I, were startled. The wooden sword hanging on the wall as decoration had resonated. I was the most surprised because I hadn't intentionally sent any energy to the sword. Wuong! The Azura Bright King sword was truly resonating. In my previous life, I had used the Azura Bright King sword for such a long time, but it had never resonated on its own even once. Woong! The vibration grew stronger and stronger. Finally, the wooden sword shook as if boiling lava was inside, and then... Bang! The wood surrounding the sword exploded. The sword inside revealed its majestic form. As everyone watched in amazement, the Azura Bright King sword, finally freed from its confining shell, resonated with a deep, low sound. Zing! It was calling to me. Chapter 72, When the First Snow Falls Again, 4. Baekpyo was greatly flustered when the hidden sword revealed itself. If I was this surprised, Baekpyo's shock must have been indescribable. The person who expressed the most surprise was Guangdu. Whoa! It was Guangdu's first time seeing a sword resonate on its own. I hurriedly said to Baekpyo, We'll be going now. I turned around, dragging Guangdu with me. Considering Baekpyo's feelings, it was right to withdraw quickly. As I turned, the sword resonated again. Zing! I stopped in my tracks at that sound, which seemed to be holding me back, telling me not to go. The depth of the resonance changed. It was responding to my movements. When I turned back, Baekpyo was staring at me with a surprised face. He too had sensed that the sword was responding to me. I slowly walked towards the sword. Zing! The sword's resonance deepened. I stepped back again. The sword's resonance became rougher. Clearly, the sword was calling to me. Baekpyo looked at me with an astonished face and said, How is this possible? I looked at Baekpyo, asking with my eyes if I could approach the sword. Baekpyo, who had been looking back and forth between me and the Azura Bright King sword, nodded. In a situation where the sword was clearly calling me, he couldn't say no. I slowly approached the sword. The resonance gradually subsided. It looked like a wild beast calming down. When my hand touched it, the Azura Bright King sword completely stopped its resonance. I took down the Azura Bright King sword that had been hanging on the wall. My heart raced as I held the Azura Bright King sword again after a year. Shaking. A uniquely refreshing and crisp sound of drawing the sword, clearer than any other sword. The Azura Bright King sword resonated again. Ziying! With a deeper and clearer resonance than before, it expressed the joy of reunion. That resonance seemed to be saying, "It's been a long time, Alliance Leader." Yes, it's been a long time. For the first time, I felt an emotional connection with the Azura Bright King sword. It was something I had never experienced in my previous 70 years of life. I sheathed the sword again. The Azura Bright King sword quieted down as if nothing had happened. For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Neither I, nor Baekpyo, nor Guangdu said anything. Finally, Baekpyo asked me in a trembling voice, "Who are you?" At this moment, Baekpyo must be feeling a powerful sense of fate. On the day he first opened the Wind Tavern, I came. I sat in the same seat where I always sat in my previous life, ordered the same drink and food. I saved his family, said the same words he had said when seeing the first snow, and the Azura Bright King sword recognized me and resonated. I looked at him steadily and said, "I am Bayok Ridan, heir to the Bayok clan sword manor." Baekpyo looked at me with an expression of incomprehension. The fact that the sword, which had never resonated on its own even once in my previous life, resonated today must be heaven speaking to me, telling me to accept my fate with Baekpyo. I am willing to follow that fate. Someone who shouldn't have become the Alliance Leader has taken that position. Because of this, the martial world will fall into great chaos in the future. Baekpyo's eyes wavered. He would know better than anyone that the current Alliance Leader had been wrongly chosen. I intend to prevent that. After a brief pause, I finally said the words I had hesitated over so much. "Will you join me in this endeavor?" The next morning, Guangdu was wiping down a table in the guest room. He was scrubbing it until it shone. Just then, a voice came from behind. "Is there a guest who cleans the inn?" Turning around, he saw Gongsu-chan standing at the door with a smile. "Our loose-lipped traitor has arrived." "I'm sorry. I saw the young master, and he happened to be looking for you." I wasn't going to say anything, but somehow I felt I should tell him. Guangdu smiled and said, "Ha ha, you did well." After all, Bayok Ridan had come at just the right moment, and things had turned out as he had wanted. Of course, he was quite shocked by the unexpected scene, but still. "But why are you cleaning?" "I clean when I'm anxious. Making dirty things clean helps calm my mind a bit. I understand that feeling. In my case, I do all sorts of calculations." "Calculations? What kind of calculations?" "Just whatever comes to mind. How much money the merchant groups in Shandong might earn in a year, how much this inn's daily income might be." "Why do such troublesome things?" "Don't tell me this cleaning of mine is the same kind of solution as your calculations. I think my method is more normal, though." "Good heavens." Gongsu-chan smiled, and Guangdu laughed along. The two had become closer since coming to Wuhan. Indeed, people become closer when they spend time together. "So how did the result of your troublemaking turn out?" At Gongsu-chan's question, Guangdu looked out the window. The world had become clean with the white snow piled up. "The result? I think we'll have to wait and see." Baekpyo stood in the yard, watching Myong-ai playing in the snow. Jong-young approached from behind. She looked at the two swords standing on the porch. One was her husband's sword, and the other was a sword she had never seen before. Of course, that sword was the Azura Bright King sword. Her gaze deepened. Since starting the business, her husband had never taken out his sword. "Did you see the moment the first snow fell?" When Baekpyo nodded, Jong-young smiled. "That's good." Although she knew it was superstition, she too believed in her husband's belief. Perhaps it was the heart of all women who had martial artists as husbands. "Someone asked me to return to the martial world." "Who?" "The heir of a clan far away in Shandong. I don't know much about what kind of person he is." "He must be a good person." Baekpyo turned to look at Jong-young with an expression that asked why she thought so. "If he wasn't, you wouldn't be agonizing like this." That was true. From the moment he first saw Bayok Ridan, there was something attractive about him. But if that was all, he wouldn't have been agonizing this much. No matter how good a person recommended it, he had no intention of serving anyone other than Cheon Ha-jin. However, the resonance of the Azura Bright King sword was decisive. Baekpyo knew. that famous swords like the Azura Bright King Sword choose their own masters. Clearly, the Azura Bright King Sword had chosen Byok Aridan as its master. The fact that Cheon Hajin's sword had chosen a new master made Baekpyo conflicted. Moreover, he had a connection beyond that with Byok Aridan. When he saw Byok Aridan, he was reminded of Cheon Hajin. It had been that way from their first meeting until now. Moreover, he had saved his wife and son from danger. That alone was an enormous debt of gratitude. He believes that the martial world will fall into chaos. He says he wants to protect this martial world. To be honest, I'm not sure what to do. Jong-young, who had been quietly staring at her husband, said something unexpected. Go. Dear. You know what? You didn't have a nightmare yesterday. Come to think of it, that was true. He hadn't had the nightmare he'd been having every day. Jong-young could understand. That her husband's place was not in a tavern but in the martial world. That it was time to let him go. That instead of fighting nightmares, he should fight real enemies. If you're hesitating because of me and Myong-ai, don't worry and just go. I can protect Myong-ai. Go for the sake of the former alliance leader too. The former alliance leader I heard about through you wasn't someone who would make you give up new dreams to keep old loyalties. Dear. If what that person says is true, and if this world becomes chaotic, you go and stop it. You were the one who protected justice and stopped evil, weren't you? Her gaze turned towards Myong-ai playing in the snow. Stop it for Myong-ai's sake. Protect this world where that child will grow up. Crunch, crunch. Baekpyo came to find me, treading on the pure white snow. I stood facing him in a clearing in the woods behind the inn. Baekpyo had his own sword at his waist and the Azura Bright King sword on his back. From this appearance, I could tell that he had made a big decision. At first, I thought Master Byok was a good person. But honestly, now I'm not sure what kind of person you are. I understand. Did you say you wanted me as your subordinate? Yes. Baekpyo drew his sword. What does this mean? I don't serve just anyone. Baekpyo's eye shone intensely. It was the look I had seen when we roamed battlefields together. You could die in this duel. Do you still want to take me with you? Baekpyo was serious. Stepping forward, I said. I, too, don't accept just anyone. No more words were needed. Baekpyo slowly moved his feet. I moved in the opposite direction, tracing a circle. I know Baekpyo's martial arts better than anyone. His strength and weakness were one and the same. The fact that his sword was not a killing sword, one, but a protective sword, two. It was weak because it was a protective sword, and strong because it was a protective sword. This was the moment I was facing the strongest expert since my reincarnation. Here I come, be careful. After this warning, Baekpyo launched his sword. Swish! Baekpyo's sword flew towards my arm. It was a fast and clean attack without any waste. I lightly moved my body to avoid the sword. The sword came flying in succession. Arms, legs, thighs. It was an attack that avoided vital areas. I dodged, blocked, and deflected his attacks. At first, Baekpyo must have been going easy. He probably didn't think I could be stronger than him. But as we engaged, he realized I wasn't easy to deal with and gradually increased the intensity of his attacks. I countered Baekpyo with the immortal crane secret art. Although the Azura Bright King sword had chosen me, I couldn't use the soul-consuming Azura sword technique. Of course, someday the time will come when I'll have to show my martial arts. He wouldn't believe that I learned directly from the alliance leader. Considering my age of 20, Baekpyo was always by my side around the time when I could have coincidentally received martial arts instruction from the alliance leader. I'll have to handle it as if I received martial arts instruction from Cheon Hajin's master or martial brothers. Since I hadn't told anyone about my personal history, they would have no choice but to believe it. Swish 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 swish. Baekpyo's sword traced patterns in the air, and my footwork found the blind spots in attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. I faced his sword with bare hands. I continued with techniques that deflected the blade with the back of my hand or arm. Although it would have seemed like a perilous moment to anyone watching, I felt at ease. Because the opponent's skill was excellent, my techniques showed their true value, and I became relatively more comfortable. But there was no reason to continue this dangerous duel with Baekpyo. Avoiding the incoming sword, I dove into Baekpyo's embrace. Whoosh! Baekpyo's body spun once in the air. Thud. Lying on the ground, Baekpyo blinked his eyes. He couldn't understand how he had been beaten in that last moment. But he must have clearly felt one thing: if I had used my full strength, he would have lost his life with this one move. I extended my hand towards him. Baekpyo grabbed my hand and got up. Standing up, Baekpyo looked at me with a bewildered expression. He must never have imagined that I could defeat him. Of course, I could have let him win. But in this martial world, especially in the relationship between a leader and a subordinate, the most important thing is trust. While personal trust is necessary, what's even more fundamental is ability. There is trust and pride in serving a strong master. I deliberately showed it. To make Baekpyo completely my person. In this respect, I have to fight against my previous self. Before making his final decision, Baekpyo asked, "If the moment comes when we have to fight them, will you fight?" The enemy he meant was Ma Bongi's faction. "Yes, I will fight. We might have to fight against the entire martial world." "I know. We might all die." "That's possible." "Then why do you want to fight?" "Because they're bad guys. Bad guys shouldn't rule the martial world, right?" At this simple truth, Baekpyo stared at me for a moment before resolution flashed in his eyes. Baekpyo knelt down and bowed his head. "I, Baekpyo, commander of the White Tiger Regiment and the 12th generation inheritor of the Wind Crow Sword Arts, 3, swear before heaven and earth to serve Master Bayok as my lord and dedicate my life to him." And he offered the Azura Bright King sword he had been carrying on his back. This sword is the former Alliance leader's unique weapon. It's the most important and precious sword in the world. Since the sword has chosen Master Bayok, I offer this sword to you. Is it all right to do so? There's someone who entrusted this sword to me. So it's not a sword I can dispose of as I please. But this sword has chosen Master Bayok. When the Azura Bright King sword chose Master Bayok, there must have been a good reason for it. Therefore, I believe the person who entrusted the sword to me would understand. I took the Azura Bright King sword and fastened it at my waist. The Azura Bright King sword, having finally found its master, resonated again. Zing! At that sound, Baekpyo nodded. He had finally confirmed that he had found the true master for the sword. I took Baekpyo's hand first. Baekpyo looked up at me with burning eyes. As I grasped his hand while looking into those eyes, I felt overwhelmed. Something hot welled up from deep within my chest. How much had he devoted himself to me? How loyal a person had he been? Now our connection had been re-established. Let's share life and death together. At my words, Baekpyo's eyes trembled. He was feeling the turmoil in my heart. In life and in death, I will be with my lord. At this moment, I was grateful to heaven. Grateful for the fate that had connected him and me. The day after the first snow fell, I gained Baekpyo, who was more reassuring than an army of thousands.